Hi, thank you for listening in to another episode of Where the Fortune Is. And I tell you what, I am thrilled today to have our next guest on. And Nicky Verd, she actually comes all to us all the way from South Africa. And I'm just was floored. We connected through LinkedIn. And one thing that stood out to me, besides her bio, the story, the passion that she has and that she leads with, was the thing that stood out, well, amongst others, but it's just said kick-ass author. And I just love that attitude. It's so much in those two words. Just shows that you got a woman with a lot of passion, drive, determination to do well and succeed. And Nikki is actually an international keynote speaker and author of the book. It's actually a hit book and a best-selling book of Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. And she's also a digital strategy consultant, an African enthusiast, an African digital transformation maverick. And Nikki was also recognized by Thinkers 360 as one of the top 50 global think leaders and influencers in digital disruption in 2019 and top 100 women business to business thought leaders and someone you should follow in 2020. So, I mean, impeccable, just impressive. And thank you for being on the show, Nikki.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert.
So, I was looking through like on your website and I was getting so amped up and enthusiastic just to talk to you because just seeing your story and your journey is what did you ever have somebody that kind of really, like the awakening moment of, hey, you know what, this person here means so much, or a mentor? Or did you just say, was it something spiritual? What moved you to go into the path that you were on now?
For me, I think my story is that back in 2016, I was very much in the corporate world and I was just starting out, like to climb the famous corporate ladder. I
Hmm.
wasn't in anything fancy. I was in admin, working for one of the doctors in one of the hospitals here as a personal assistant. And so one day I was calling for a meeting, and that was like literally my like giving me notice that you know what, Nikki, we're letting you go, and
Well,
that was it. I was let off, and when I left, I I had no clue what to do, what next to do with my life. I was really looking forward to climbing the corporate ladder, and someone just snatched it from underneath me. So what next? And I was angry, and I had a couple of people I thought they should have been let off, not me. I was like, I think
yeah,
I'm too young for this.
yeah,
so, so like the entitled mindset in me was like, I don't deserve this. Someone else should be let off, not me. But however, beneath that pain and the frustration and the anger, beneath all of it, I started asking the questions as of, but what really is driving, people being laid off at the rate in which they are being laid off? Like, especially in South Africa, a lot of people were being retrenched, from work at the time.
mm,
And I had no background in IT or anything technology prior to that. I was just someone who was so focused on climbing the corporate ladder. And I started asking these hard questions. What is driving people being, laid off at this rate? What is driving people being trained? So many, like, how can a company let go of, say, 5,000 employees in a space of like 2 years
wow,
or 3 years or 5 years,
hmm,
and they don't collapse? I mean, in my mind, aren't people supposed to be the lifeline of any organization, of any company? How do you let go
yeah.
of so many people and your productivity increases, your efficiency increases, profit increases? I was like, something is going on here and I'm going to find out what it is. So I basically just threw myself into the belly of the internet, as I always say,
Yeah.
to find out what this was. And it was just out of curiosity because naturally I'm a very curious person. So all I wanted to do was to understand what this was for myself. I didn't even think that it would bring me to this path on which I am right now. So for me, I just wanted to understood, have the basic understanding of what is driving retrenchment, why are so many people being laid off from work. And so in the course of my curiosity and trying to read stuff on the internet and learn things on my own, I came across, okay, technology is actually replacing people at work. That was like a light bulb moment for me. I think it has always been replacing people at work, but it's something I've never paid attention to. So when I came across that, I was like, wow, so machines are replacing us as we are coming out. This is quite interesting.
Hmm.
And so I started writing about it, like just writing like posts on it on social media. Thank God for social media. Sometimes it turns out to be where you test your ideas, and the response you get
Yeah.
can either tell you go with it or just forget about it. So the
Mhm.
more I posted on social media, I realized that I was not the only clueless person about this, right? So many people kind of were also very much curious as to what was happening, and they
Yeah.
wanted to know more of my findings. So I kept writing more. And initially, writing for me was a way to escape my pain. I was doing this, and the more people got inspired by it, I was like, okay, I feel better about myself. I'm not that miserable anymore.
Yeah.
So for me, initially, it was a way of escape. It was more of a therapy to me, just to get over losing my job and maybe clear my mind and find out what was going to happen to me next. The idea of being a speaker, I didn't even know I could speak. This is something that I'd literally discovered along the way. I
Mhm.
didn't know I could write a book. Writing for me was just like anybody can post on social media, so can Nikki. So, and then I realized that it evolved from writing these my findings on social media, and the more people wanted more of it, I decided to start blogging. I just it evolved from social media posts to articles on my blog,
Mhm.
and from there people just wanted more, and at the time I was like, okay, I think somebody needs to write a book on this topic to let the world know how much technology is changing the workplace. So that now became a passion for me, but I didn't think that I would be the one to do that. I was hoping someone else would do that, but as much as I was looking left and looking right, I was realizing that I'm the one digging this, so I'm going to be the one to have to take it to the masses. So I kind of like appointed myself. Okay, I think Nikki, this is on you. You
Mhm.
have to do this. So my articles then just evolved into a book, and I came up with the title Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted because for me, I was having my life. I mean, I had plans 5 years ahead of me, and someone disrupted me. I was like, this is something I didn't plan. And so, for those people that are still privileged to have jobs, and they're having all of these plans, you need to start thinking outside the box somehow, or at least you need to understand how the world is changing. At the very basics of it, understand how technology is changing the world. And so, and if you don't disrupt yourself with the information you get, someone is going to disrupt your life. And if you do not start asking yourself the hard questions now, when someone puts you in a corner and puts your back against the wall, like it happened to me, you will not think straight. You're all over the place.
Mhm.
So my idea in the book, it was to get people to start thinking outside the box, to start asking themselves the hard questions. Look at where the world is going. Look at how technology is changing the world. Ask yourself, maybe you're in school, especially for students, like the certificate in which I am currently pursuing in a college or whatever, wherever you are, or the short courses people are taking, is it going to be relevant in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years? These are questions that I want to provoke people to be asking themselves, that I
Mhm.
wanted to provoke people to be asking themselves.
Yeah.
You look at the certificates that maybe you had 3 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Ask yourself, is it still relevant? Should I still be holding on to this? I usually give an example of accountants, like, because there are softwares right now that can do an accounting job way better than any human can. And there are still people holding so much onto their accounting certificates. They don't want to upskill, they don't want to evolve.
Mhm.
And most of them, worst as parents, are pushing their kids right now to go study accounting. That is like you're setting a child up for failure, right? So
Mhm.
these are the kind of conversations that I was hoping, and I'm hoping that the book can invoke in people, and people start asking these questions and things like that. I think I went too deep into the question you asked, but
No,
yeah,
it's
that
great.
is a bit of the background.
No, I love it. Yeah, it's just your passion showing through, and that's great that you have that. To for people to know, especially right now, what's going on in the world. Because I mean, so many people are having
Absolutely,
their whole life disrupted, and just.
absolutely.
But it was interesting because you use it to escape some pain and therapy you're going through. I imagine that was got to be a tough time and a low point for you once you lost your job.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was a very low time for me.
Yeah, I'm so proud that you were able to go through that and that transition and through that. Since you've gone on your journey now, has there been a moment that you kind of had to take another step back and, like you said before, think outside the box, or did you just, hey, head down, let's roll the sleeves up, we're making this happen, or did you have to again think outside the box to reshift your focus?
I think right now I'm being forced to think outside the box because one of the industries that is being affected right now is like conferencing, the hospitality industry, which is where I function more. I miss being on stage, like literally. Most
Mhm.
of I had 2 international trips that were canceled just before the lockdown happened, and so I miss that. So I'm being forced to also start thinking outside the box now that physical um, interaction is very much limited because of social distancing. What next? What do I do? Hence, I started a YouTube channel like just recently. It's always been there, but I never put content on it because
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to dive deeper into digital space. And one of the
Mhm.
reasons I'm having this conversation with you probably never would have happened if if coronavirus did not happen. So yeah, I think it's a journey of constant reinvention. You don't get to that point where you can relax and say, you know what, I've arrived. I have evolved enough. It's constantly, it's a lifelong journey for me. From what I see, you cannot relax. You cannot put your guard down and think that at this point you've had it all. So look at what coronavirus is doing to the entire world. Everyone is kind of sitting on pins and needles right now. And
Mhm.
so I am not an exception to that. As much as my life was reinvented a couple of years ago, it's a completely whole new level of reinvention happening right now. So yes,
Yeah.
it's a constant journey of reinvention.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. That the constant journey of reinvention. I'm sitting there jotting down notes when you're saying because I'm just loving some. You're dropping so much great knowledge. I'm like, this is amazing. So that's you're right. It is the reinvention. And are you going to? How's that shifted in the effect of like another public speaking? If you trying to do like an online stage and platform, is that something you're trying to build on?
I have had so many Zoom meetings and virtual conferences since the lockdown,
Mm,
which I am really getting tired of because I am longing for a face-to-face interaction. So yeah, that's the transition because some of the conferences, people still need to do certain things, and you can't sit and be waiting for the day after coronavirus. We don't know if that day is ever gonna come.
yeah.
So life sort of continues in the virtual space, and I had to be forced to learn certain things, to learn how to do this. I struggle a bit even logging on here. So those are some of the changes that are constantly happening. And so, yes, I am very much in the virtual conferencing space. Sometimes I'm invited for a session or to be a panelist or to host. And just so it's happening, but it's happening right now in the virtual space, but not as exciting as being as face to face, of course.
Yeah, I feel like everybody's really longing for actual human interaction and
I
being face to
definitely
face, and
I am.
yeah, and especially on stage, I would imagine you're feeding off the energy of the crowd.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How is it with this? Has this sparked another book idea for you, or is it still just you're evolving what you're doing now?
That's an interesting question. Actually, even before the COVID-19 happened, I already had an idea of the book, and which I'm currently working on. But I think that it would just blend even much perfectly with what is happening and where the world is currently going. And so, yes, I'm working on the next book, which is titled "The Rise of the Obsolete Class." So yes, I'm hoping
Nice.
by this time next year. Somehow, I don't know. I can't put a timeline on this, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's the next project that I'm working on, which is the next book. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's great. And then I know that you had some. You said a minute ago about some trips that were booked and you had to cancel. Where were those actually planned for?
I was planned for Mauritius. I had a
Mm.
conference in Mauritius, and it was cancelled because of COVID-19. And the one in China, it actually, you remember the COVID-19 started in China, of course.
Yeah.
So I had a conference in Shanghai, which by January, they already told me, we don't think we're going to go through with this because, of course, I was invited since last year. We're having a conference
Mm.
in Shanghai. So they told me, they said, okay, you know what, everything is on hold. We're just going to see what happens. That was by January. We didn't
Yeah.
know that China was going to export the whole thing to the entire world.
Yeah.
Here in South Africa, we were
Yeah.
still very safe, and we were like in the Chinese virus.
Yeah.
So everyone were referring to it as a Chinese virus. We had no idea that was going to hit us at the time.
Yeah.
The conference was going to happen in Shanghai. So they told me, Nikki, we're not sure if this is going to happen, but let's just see what happened. But then, of course, everything just fizzled out. So
Yeah.
we're hoping maybe it happens next year, but nobody knows. Nobody
Okay.
really
Yeah.
knows.
I was about to ask if when everything subsides and goes back to whatever new normal is going to be, do you think you'll go back to China and actually speak?
Yes, I will. You'll be safe, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. Like I was looking forward to being in Shanghai, so definitely I will.
Oh, okay. How does that something happen for to become an international speaker? I know you will get back to it, and so we can have that interaction and feeding off the crowd. But how did that transition? Were you able to land a job over in China to speak? How that come about?
Um, I think people usually come across my work online, or someone may hear about my book, which I've heard from so many people that the title alone is not the one you hear and pass. You have to like stop and like, okay, can I see that? So
Yeah.
because of the book and because I have been building an online presence long before I even came up with the book, so people are able to find me online.
Hmm.
People are able to find me on LinkedIn, even through Google. You can just find me my website.
Yeah.
So the people in China, the organizers, part of the team is here in South Africa, from what I understood. So someone had mentioned me somewhere in Cape Town, and then we had some sort of a meeting in Johannesburg, and the person that was part of the building team in China, in that same room where we had a meeting and I was part of the panel, I sat next to him. So when we were introducing ourselves and I introduced myself as Nicky Verd, he gave me this look like, what did you say? I'm like, I'm Nicky Verd. He's like, someone recommended you to me. I can't believe you're sitting next to me. So literally that's how we exchanged contacts, and he told me, yes, the reason someone recommended you to me was because we were hosting a conference in China and you were recommended as one of the speakers that could be there. And so literally, anyway, that was how the China gig happened.
Yeah.
And for Mauritius, they reach out to me on LinkedIn. And for others, usually they reach out to me on LinkedIn just like you did.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That's that's impressive. You just never know where the next introduction, the next where that next. I always like to say that next is going to happen, where it's going to lead you to the next conversation. I mean,
Yes,
you just never know.
absolutely. I think that is why for me, I talk about people being very strategic online on social media, because you're building a portfolio,
Hmm.
basically. And so when someone comes across your profile, there should be something that keeps them there and inspire them somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true because you have to really try to find something that's going to captivate them because the amount of time that somebody lands on a website and leaves, I mean, it's seconds. You got to find something that's just going to lock in that they can
Absolutely.
see it.
Absolutely.
So with everything that's happening now, I know that you've done a lot of shifting and changing. Do you feel like it's still a daily? I feel like it can be a daily change and shift, or do you have a kind of time block like, hey, I'm going to try this out for a week, 2 months, or is it constant? You feel like you're constantly having to evolve so fast with COVID?
This is a really challenging times. I don't think I have a specific um, what's the word? I don't have any specific timeline or any specific model I'm following right now. I'm just going with the time. It's
Yeah,
more like throwing things against the wall and see what sticks, right?
yeah,
So I really, it's a really challenging time. So for me, I'm
mhm,
like, okay, today. But one thing I'm trying to focus on is that one, my brand doesn't die with the current COVID-19. I keep
mhm,
I keep it alive. So I constantly have to still put content out there or on social media, on YouTube, and constantly have to still, just to keep the brand alive. So that's one thing I'm making sure of that. Secondly, the book that I just mentioned that I'm working on,
yeah,
so that when the day after Corona finally comes, there will be a new product for me to get into the market with, rather than just
yeah,
sitting and waiting for these things to blow over. We don't know.
yeah,
So those are like the main things I am working on, just expanding my digital footprints and working on the next book.
yeah. That's a great idea, and you're so true because you can't wait till they say, "Hey, everything's open back up again." Because if you do, then you're going to be so far behind everybody else that's
Absolutely.
doing exactly what you're doing right now. So that's a testament to you. So I love the work
Yeah,
ethic you have.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because of the lockdown and people being mostly at home, I had to learn how to just learned certain new skills that I probably wouldn't have thought of. I would have been so busy traveling the world. I never would have thought of like, okay, I had to learn this software, video editing, how to shoot videos and stuff like that, which initially was so challenging, but eventually I was like, I think I'm getting a hand on this. And then I am grateful that this happened for me to learn these new skills, which is one of the things I talk about with people. Learn new skills, because you had a certificate in accounting. Don't hold on to it, till death do you part. If you think there's no future in accounting, migrate to digital marketing or something. Just let it be and move. So it is
Yeah.
that kind of flexibility and agility where people have to be agile. People have to have the kind of mindset to understand that it is time for you. We are not only talking about thinking outside the box right now. We're talking about thinking outside the job, thinking
Mhm.
outside your industry, thinking outside your certificate. So nothing should be cemented. Whatever we're doing right now, nothing should be cemented. Be willing to move if needs be for you to move. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that's so true, and that the flexibility and having the agility to do that, to adapt, because
yes.
it's unfortunate so many people are losing their jobs, and it's like you said, you like, okay, now what are you going to do? What new skill am I going to learn to adapt? Because if not, then the whole world is just going to pass you by.
Absolutely.
Yeah, through that journey, I mean, that's just. Has there been a? Oh, do you need to get that?
I didn't get the last question. I'm sorry about it. I take
No,
notifications coming on my. I'm sorry.
no problem. through through the journey that you've gone through, and I know you've done sound exceptionally well of adjusting and making those changes and being flexible and adapting to new things and new skills. Has there ever been one that's just an absolute challenge that maybe it's still a bear that you're trying to tackle now?
Yes, I think there are things that really constantly challenges someone. I think just a few days ago, I had to do an Excel spreadsheet or something.
Yeah.
And I literally ended up moving. I was like, you know what? Excel spreadsheet has always been a challenge to me. But I think I'm just being lazy, like really lazy to learn that. But it's because it's a skill that I think if I put my mind on it, I would have like mastered it. But because there are other easier options for me to get an invoice ready, I pick on those ones. But now a particular invoice that I had to do, someone requested we need it on an Excel spreadsheet. And
Mhm.
I was literally sweating and having my palms sweating. Like, oh my God, I really cannot do this. So there's some of those skills that I've ignored over the years, which are now catching up with me, like, the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's something that I decided just a couple of days ago that I think I'm going to have to slay this giant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it doesn't intimidate me further. So they're usually those kind of things. Sometimes it is just out of laziness. Sometimes it's just that you didn't even know the software like that existed, and then it just shoots up in front of you, and you have to be forced to learn it.
Mm.
So yeah, there are things, of course, that still challenges me a lot.
Yeah. Well, I admire that. You said you're going to slay the giant, and I know you will because you've done so much at this point. So I've no doubt that you'll slay the giant when it comes to that in that regard.
Definitely.
So through the process, I know you said you're doing a lot of Zoom calls and stuff. Is that still on through the networking side that you're having to do to for speaking, or is that just something that around your area? What exactly kind of? I want to look through that window of like that day operation. Why are you having to hop? Why are you having to hop on so many Zoom calls? Or
Sometimes it's invites when people
Mhm.
have maybe some sort of a gathering and they need someone to facilitate or someone to sit on the panel or someone to share a particular idea. And then sometimes I'm referred to or they reach out to me. There's some that I turn down, of course, because if it gets too much.
Yeah.
And so yes, it comes from different angles. It comes from the speaking angle. It comes from networking. Sometimes it's just a couple of friends
Mhm.
having a conversation, but sometimes it is just like an actual conversation happening in a particular organization and someone needed to facilitate that. So that is how the Zoom calls are happening.
Oh, okay. When you're talking about the networking, how is the networking like? How's that like over there? Because I know here we have some people can go to a meeting, but it's, we can only do 10. Sometimes places like 12 people, sometimes it's 6 people. So they've really limited the numbers. How are the numbers over there in South Africa? Can you go out at all, or is it not at all?
Do go out like I was out today?
Yeah.
I came back a couple of hours ago because I was just literally checking my time. I was like, I've got a podcast with Robert.
Yeah.
So yes, people do go out, but there are limitations on the number of gatherings. Like people, the government has put the limit to 50. People cannot gather for any gathering. You cannot be more than 50.
Okay.
And literally for us, but church, we cannot really go to church. Everything is on online because
Yeah.
we're more than 50. If you're deciding if people are coming, only going to be 50, who are you going to choose?
Yeah.
And who are you going to say stay at home? So we're literally doing everything online. So there are those restrictions for smaller gathering, less than 50, but maximum is 50 according to the government regulation. So people do go out, people do go around. Restaurants, they just started opening up, and businesses just started opening up. In South Africa, we're doing what is called level 5 lockdown. We started from level 5 when nothing
Mhm.
at all was happening, and then we moved to level 4. We right now in level 3. Level 3, the restaurants are allowed to be open,
Mm.
and schools were allowed to be open, but then they shut down just 2 weeks after being open because it just escalated the virus. And
Yeah.
so yes, we're seeing what will happen. There's a lot of reopening and shutting down certain aspects of the economy. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of
I
the same
think
here.
no one was really prepared for this. No government was prepared for this. So everyone is doing a trial and see, like, okay, let's try this and see what happens. If it's not working, we shut it down completely before more people die.
No, yeah, no, it's the same here. I didn't know too, as far as when on the networking side, are you going to networking events, or are you just doing everything all virtual?
And most things are virtual.
Yeah.
Like there are no networking events actually. I haven't seen any that it's in real time. Like people have to interact physically. Everything is
Yeah.
on in the digital space, so to say. So someone could have a networking event, and we just do as a Zoom meeting, a Zoom call. It could be 10, could be 5 people.
Hmm.
So that's what is really happening right now. But I think a lot of people are still like just terrified of the whole idea of COVID-19, and a lot of people are still getting used to the new normal. But I think as humans accept this as our new normal, we're going to just like, okay, this is what we're gonna have to live with. So I think we're gonna meet for that coffee soon, rather than
Yeah.
hiding behind our screens. So yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. But on the new normal, I know you've kind of touched on a few of the ideas that you're doing right now within like your new normal within business and how you're operating. Aside from the book, is there anything else that like during this time has really, just lit a fire, sparked something in you, said, "Hey, this is something else I can really, devote my time to." Is there anything else that you're working on?
Nothing nothing major apart from the fact that my my website, I recently decided, okay, I think I'm going to literally convert this into an e-commerce platform because of COVID-19. There are now more people buying online
Mhm.
than there were before, and so like the sales of my book has literally dropped because bookstores, actual physical bookstores, were closed down.
Yeah.
And so most of the books that are distributed to bookstores nationwide within South Africa, they're just standing there. So I
Hmm.
started thinking, okay, how do I still sell? Rather than instead of relying only on Amazon, sell my books, of course, on Amazon, the hardcover and the digital version. They're
Yeah.
both on Amazon. But then I wanted a platform on my own. I'm like, I already have a website. I can convert it to an e-commerce platform because now e-commerce is not going to be a thing where, especially in Africa, where more people are still scared and skeptical of buying online, right?
Yeah.
COVID-19 has fast forwarded us into that digital transformation where now you're like, hello, where can I pay? I mean, and you just do the
Yeah.
buttons, which you, before you would literally be like, I think someone is trying to scam me. But right now, people are comfortable with the idea of buying online. So I was like, I think I need to also position myself to take advantage of the e-commerce wave that
Yeah.
is currently floating on the continent, and people are getting comfortable with the idea of buying online. Okay, I'm going to convert my website into an e-commerce platform, something I'm still doing with my web designer. And then I can sell not just books, I can sell other accessories from my website. It could
Mhm.
be t-shirts, it could be anything.
Yeah.
Just create that marketplace and start as we are all training people to accept the digital space, we're training people to buy. I can also have that platform where I can refer people with certain items they might need and certain things they might need or want to buy the book or the signed copy of the book. Then I'm like, okay, get to my website and you have that. So that is like, I don't think it's anything major, but yeah, it's a kind of a shift that is happening in my
Yeah.
own personal life. Because
Yeah.
before this, I wasn't thinking I'm going to have an e-commerce platform, but right now I think it's necessary.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, it's interesting you say you don't think it's major, but it actually really is because you alluded to it how a lot of people in South Africa they were kind of apprehensive and they didn't want to buy something online because they thought it was a scam, and now they're
Yep,
realizing, hey, if I need something, I'm gonna have to tap in. I'm gonna have to do something online,
absolutely.
and so you were
Yes,
jumping ahead of that,
yes,
which is great. So
yes.
it's bigger than you're letting on to be. You're just humble in that regard, but it's definitely there.
I hope it is bigger because I need money. I still need ways to make money. So I hope it's really bigger. But I
Yeah.
think it is bigger because the the e-commerce platform in Africa is still very much at its infancy.
Mhm.
So with people getting used to the idea of buying online and then you have certain products that you can also plug yourself into that space, I think it's a big deal. It's quite a big deal because 2 to 3 years from now, if you are already in that space, people will already know, okay, we can buy certain things, from Nikki's website. I could even do some of the things I've been thinking of doing is like to create, digital courses, and sell them via my website. So those
Yeah.
are things that I wouldn't have thought about it if the COVID-19 did not happen. So we're all being forced to think outside the box right now,
Yeah.
which is quite exciting for me though. So yes.
Mhm. So, what if for all the stuff that you're working on, what is the best way for somebody to tap into the resources that you have? Like, if you don't mind sharing, what's some good, what's a website, the YouTube, is everything on your website, or what's the best way to see that content?
It differs from people to people. Some people are more visual, some people prefer to read text. So,
Hmm.
for those that prefer text, of course, you go on my website, you read the articles. Most of the articles that I publish on my website, they also as well published on LinkedIn and on medium.com. So, I'm on a few platforms. So, it just depends on what each individual preferences are. And for those who prefer visual, of course, you find Nicky Verd on YouTube, which I've literally just started, so no one should have high expectations.
Yeah.
My channel has always been there, but I was never in my mind that I could be creating visual content.
Hmm.
So I literally started a couple of months ago, and I'm enjoying the journey. I'm learning a lot along the way. Like I told you, I was being forced to learn how to do video editing, which is quite exciting. I was like, I'm learning a new skill in
Yeah.
lockdown.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job because I watched some of the YouTube clips you had, and that was good. So, I mean, it seemed like you actually had that marketed out, and you had somebody else come in like a third party pay for it. So what you did was
Oh,
fantastic.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Nikki, I can tell you have a lot going on, which I can't thank you enough for your time. So I want to give you time back to you. I greatly appreciate you being on the show. You said your website? What's the name of the website?
www.nickyverd.africa. I am on .africa, not .com. As you initially introduced me at the beginning, Africa Enthusiast, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I noticed one of your videos.
I'm in love with the continent. So yeah, I had to take a domain that represent my
Yeah,
love and passion.
yeah, you should. I love that. Yeah, because I saw one of your videos. You had the earrings. You had Africa earrings, and I
Oh,
thought
I was
you
doing
got a lot of passion.
I
Yeah,
do them right now. It's just
yeah,
laughing. I took them on because of this. I always have them on.
yeah. I love that. Yeah, well, you got a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm for what you're doing, and I just wish you nothing but continued success. You've been a great
Thank you
journey and
so much.
inspiration to this point, and thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.